European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is in Ukraine as part of an EU delegation. The visit is meant to send a strong message of support for Ukraine, including for its EU membership bid. Along with the bloc's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, von der Leyen met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in the Ukrainian capital. And earlier, she had visited a mass grave in Bucha, a town outside Kyiv. Here's a part of what the European Commission President had to say during her trip.
I started my day today with a visit to Bucha because being in Bucha and seeing what has happened, you can tell that our humanity was shattered in Bucha. And it is right and just that the world has voted to suspend Russia from the Human Rights Council. It is a war, yes, that Russia unleashed against an innocent Ukraine, but it's much, much more than that. On top, it is these big questions that will be decided in this war. So your fight is also our fight. And I'm here in Kyiv with you today to send a very strong message that the European Union is by your side. We stand by your side. This is the message that, dear Volodymyr, I want to bring to you, but also to the Ukrainian people.
For more, we're joined by DW correspondent Alexandra von Namen, who joins us from the Ukrainian capital. Alexandra, talk to us about the significance of this visit by top European Union officials to Ukraine.
Well, I think it was very significant to see the President of the European Union and the Ukrainian President stand side by side during the joint press conference. It was important to hear those words from Ursula von der Leyen that the European Union is standing by the side of Ukraine, that their fight is our fight, and that the European Union acknowledged that they can never match the sacrifice of the Ukrainian people. And I think the fact that she was here in Kyiv was appreciated by the Ukrainian government, and the fact that she decided to visit Bucha despite significant security risk was also appreciated. But let's have a listen to what the Ukrainian president had to say during this joint press conference.
I would like to thank you, Madam President, for this very special visit, for your visit to Bucha. This is a very powerful signal which shows the world that Ukraine and the EU stand together in this fight for justice, dignity, for values and human life. It shows that we are working together. It is very important to have so many visitors. It's important for every Ukrainian family, for every Ukrainian person, for all our children who can see their life in the future in Ukraine, in our future country as strong and united as it is now, but in the European Union. That is where we belong.
So, Alexandra, again, President Zelenskyy reiterating the strong signal that this trip sends. What more did von der Leyen have to offer Ukraine today other than the EU's support? We know Ukraine has made consistent appeals for more weapons and more sanctions.
What Ursula von der Leyen had in her luggage was a fifth package of sanctions, including a ban on coal imports from Russia and other measures. This is, of course, not enough from the Ukrainian perspective. They would like, for instance, to see a total ban on energy imports, all energy imports from Russia. However, we also have to acknowledge that those sanctions imposed by the European Union against Russia are taken all together the toughest measures that the European Union imposed against Russia ever. So that is also something that we have to acknowledge. And what Ursula von der Leyen didn't bring to Kyiv was a concrete perspective, a concrete date for a potential EU membership of Ukraine. However, what she brought and handed over to Zelenskyy was a questionnaire. And she said that the European Commission is going to help Ukraine Ukraine, answer all the questions, and then they will make recommendation, and we can expect the European Union to propose to accelerate the proceedings so that Ukraine could become a candidate for EU membership.
Alexandra, a crucial visit, but the war continues to rage. There was an attack on a train station today. That station is part of a very known evacuation route in Kramatorsk. Thousands of people, civilians were there. Russia repeatedly says it does not bomb civilians, but that's not what we're seeing, Alexandra.
That is true. That is not what we are seeing, and that is, of course, what Russia is saying all the time. It wasn't us. It was a provocation. The Ukrainians are to blame. However, we have to stress that the Russian army has, according to experts, systematically targeted civilians and civilian infrastructure during this war. And we also have to stress that we know that Russia is intensifying its attacks on the east and the south of Ukraine. And of course, it is just devastating news and awful pictures to see people who are trying to flee and to understand that those people were killed while waiting for a train.
DW correspondent Alexandra von Namen, thank you. As Russian forces retreat from northern Ukraine, more details are now emerging about what people in those areas have endured. The mayor of Chernihiv says about 700 people were killed by Russian attacks, including soldiers and civilians. He also said 70 of the bodies have yet to be identified. Survivors there are haunted by the memories of the past 6 weeks.
Abandoned weapons, devastated buildings. The Russian soldiers might have withdrawn from Chernihiv, but they have left an indelible mark on the town and on the minds of the people. As homes were attacked and destroyed, the people here took shelter together in places like this, sharing the relative safety of underground spaces. But now that the bombing has stopped, some are finding it hard to leave the places that saved their lives. Some have nowhere else to go. Others feel unsafe going back, like Yulia and her 8-year-old daughter.
Now there are approximately 60 people here, mostly people who lost their homes and people whose houses are not livable. At some point, there were up to 600 people. They were sleeping all over the place at that time.
In the besieged town of Mariupol, bunker living has become a way of life. 12-year-old Masha and her sister Valeria have dared to come out into the courtyard. They spend most of their time in the shelter.
Before, I was afraid of everything, of the slightest noise. But little by little, you get used to it.
A few weeks ago, they tried to leave by car in the middle of a battle, but had to turn back after a few meters. Another shelter had been fatally hit.
We were on our way. The children and grandparents in the back, I was in the front. When we turned in front of the theater, something exploded in front of us and the windshield was blown out.
Now they have been living underground for several weeks, with little light and 12 other people. There are a few home comforts, but Masha longs for her old life.
I just want to go home and go back to school, do my activities, to live like I used to.
While millions of displaced Ukrainians have fled to Europe for safety, those left behind have little choice but to shelter from the storms of conflict.